Good evening, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring classicist here, a wandering author, reminding you that we're all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today, we're going to define the profligate. This right here is chapter 8, book 7 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. So he begins by saying, the profligate, as we said, does not feel remorse, for he abides by his choice. And let's remember, guys, a profligate's somebody who chases pleasure excessively. And Aristotle says here that the profligate is defined by the fact that he doesn't regret chasing excessive pleasure because he abides by the choice. The unrestrained man, on the other hand, who we have discussed in some of my past videos, invariably repents his excesses afterwards. So the unrestrained man and the profligate are different because the profligate doesn't regret his choice. The unrestrained man does. Hence, the objection that we stated does not hold good. On the contrary, it is the profligate who cannot be cured, whereas the unrestrained man can. So if you're unrestrained, you can be cured. For vice resembles diseases like dropsy and consumption, which was tuberculosis, whereas unrestraint is like epilepsy, which can't be cured. Vice being a chronic, unrestraint an intermittent evil. Indeed, unrestraint and vice are entirely different in kind, for vice is unconscious, whereas the unrestrained man is aware of his infirmity. Among the unrestrained themselves, the impulsive sort are better than those who know the right principle but do not keep to it. For these succumb to smaller temptations, and they do not yield without deliberation as do the impulsive. The unrestrained man is like people who get drunk quickly and with a small amount of wine, or with less than most men. That unrestraint is not strictly a vice is clear, for unrestraint acts against deliberate choice, vice in accordance with it. But nevertheless, in the action that results from it, it resembles vice. So unrestraint can resemble vice because the actions are similar. Just as Demodocus wrote of the people of Miletus, which is an island near Greece, Milesians are no fools, 'tis true, but yet they act as fools would do. That's a good lyric, right? Similarly, the unrestrained are not unjust, but they do unjust things. Again, the unrestrained man is so constituted as to pursue bodily pleasures that are excessive and contrary to right principle, without any belief that he ought to do so. Whereas the profligate, because he is so constituted as to pursue them, is convinced that he ought to pursue them. So some people regret chasing too much bodily pleasures, and others don't. That's the difference between the unrestrained man and the profligate. Therefore, the former can easily be persuaded to change, but the latter cannot. An unrestrained person can develop some self-discipline. For virtue preserves the fundamental principle, meaning like our intellect, like the modern sense of the word intellect, not the Aristotelian. Vice destroys it. And the first principle or starting point in matters of conduct is the end proposed, which corresponds to the hypothesis of mathematics. That right there is a very niche analogy. Hence, no more in ethics than in mathematics are the first principles imparted by process of reasoning, but by virtue, whether natural or acquired by training and right opinion as to the first principle. The man of principle, therefore, is temperate, the man who has lost all principle, profligate. But there is a person who abandons his choice against right principle under the influence of passion, who is mastered by passion sufficiently for him not to act in accordance with right principle, but not so completely as to be of such a character as to believe that pursuit of pleasure is right. This is the unrestrained man. He is better than the profligate, and not absolutely bad, for in him the highest part of man, the fundamental principle, is still preserved. Opposed to the unrestrained man is another who stands firm by his choice, and does not abandon it under the mere impulse of passion. It is clear from these considerations that self-restraint is a good quality, and unrestraint a bad one. And then the next chapter is going to be about the nature of self-restraint in particular, and then he's going to finish off book 7 with 4 chapters about pleasure and pain. And then we get to talk about friendship, which is really rather exciting. Book 8's quite good. That's one of my favorites. Anyways, What are y'all doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love y'all.